There's some carryover here. I want to speak a little bit about where I'm coming from. I do political theory as well. I'm actually thinking more about my time when I was an ACORN organizer. I was ACORN's organizer in Arkansas, in Little Rock and Pine Bluff. I knocked doors. I've been trying to figure out lately how many couches I sat on. But I sat there and my goal was to convert people into joining an organization. And the demands were very strong. You were gonna pay dues, but also I was gonna have your phone number and bug you forever to turn out and protest, things like that. And being very upfront about that was very helpful, right? Right away, that's what you needed to say. So thinking about that, we did election campaigns. We thought about how to persuade people. Also, when I was the new person, ACORN was founded in Arkansas, in Little Rock, and when they didn't need stuff, when they needed space, they just put stuff in a basement. And it was a horror show down there. I mean, things had been there for 25, 30 years, and I was told to go clear it. Okay. I and this intern, we didn't have any interns. Like, this is a high school kid who got our politics, was a very special person, actually. On Facebook, I talk to her and thank her still now and then. And yeah, we saw some things. But one of the things we saw was National Welfare Rights Organization literature around basic income. That's where the idea got in my head. So, I don't know, I've been thinking about some of the things I learned there and how they might apply here. And there's a point where I think basic income provides something. I'm thinking about movements, may not be the basic income movement. I want to get them to put basic income in their agenda. Right? So I see an organization, I don't know, I could name almost any of them, right? Sierra Club. Well, damn it, Sierra Club. It's on your platform, right? Carbon caps, dividend. But why isn't this the number one thing, right? I'm trying to figure out a wrap there. You can't see this. This is a flow chart that was all over the internet. Do people recognize it? You might. So this shows a little bit what I'm thinking. In fact, this may fit some of Akin and Bartol's work, right? So who should I vote for? And the first question is shit broken, right? And the flow chart goes yes, no. This really was, my job at ACORN was to find people who thought shit was broken, right? People thought everything was okay. I'd leave a flyer and say, here's our number. When you realize things are seriously wrong, you can call me. And I needed to get moving to get to the next person. And if you said no, the question was, are women people? If you say yes, then vote Clinton. If you say no, Kasich, maybe remember him. You're Ohioan, yeah, so we remember Kasich. If you say yes, shit's broken. Who did it? Mexican Muslims, Black Lives Matter. Now you gotta go, when is Jesus coming back? If you don't know, it's Trump. Next week, it's Cruz. If rich people are why, then Sanders. We could debate this. I'm not going into that. But there's a way in which this kind of thinking is important. There are so many people out there for whom that initial question, what's wrong? Are things wrong? Right? And if you're saying no, we just need more things kind of like the last 8 years, right? I'm not listening to you because, right? So there's something important here about getting in there and recognizing your shit's broken, right? And that's why we should do it this way. All right, the flowchart gave me an idea. I want us to just keep in mind two things. A tremendous number of people feel invisible or they feel despised. And by the way, I use feel. A whole lot of people are politically invisible and are despised, right? They are not, it's not some psychological thing they need to think about and get over. They're going to encounter this, right? And their activity, their activism is going to have to deal with this, right? So at ACORN, we talked about it, right? And we had to fix this with, protest actions, sit-ins, things like that. There's very little trust in elites out there. And this isn't some brand new thing. These have been true for a long time. This is, when I call it a model, listen, academics, that's like something really, this is 3 boxes I'm going to point at, really. But this is what folks make claims when they say, come and join us. And this isn't me saying, oh, hey, basic income needs to realize this for its movement. I'm thinking if there's a movement, this is why I want you, if I like your movement, to put basic income in the mix. But first we want to just say, what do movements do? Give us power. We'll do the thing. The thing benefits you, the community, right? I think I can defend this model as something. So I'll give a version, right? I mean, free market ideologists or organizations will say, support free market. People, candidates, ideology, if we leave the markets alone, there's going to be more options, more jobs, right? We see this indirect way that success for this movement will provide for the community, right? And we call this trickle-down economics. A lot of us in the room, right? We're like, come on, we'll correct this, okay? The indirect character of it, support us, we'll do this thing, and that thing will do what you want, right? I'm starting to see a problem with it. If you are invisible or despised, market actors aren't going to come and generate in your community, right? So in Arkansas and Pine Bluff, if someone's going to invest millions of dollars, no one in Pine Bluff believes anyone is going to invest in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, right? And they have some empirical evidence. My town there has regularly appeared in lists of worst towns in America, over and over. I've been to worse places than Pine Bluff, right? I'm not sure it was right, but that's what's going on, right? And if some millionaire in Arkansas is going to invest, they're not going to Pine Bluff. So this free market thing has real problems for that community, right? They're nuts to embrace this as an ideological mission that'll work for their community. But there's different versions. I mean, Trump has I'm not sure, he's hard to describe. We'll build a wall, and then you and your community have a wall. But in a way, I don't, what Trump benefited from was a couple things he did. Let's look at this list thing here, right? People feel invisible or despised. Do you realize how many times Trump said to crowds, "I love you"? It's weird, right? But what's he doing? He's breaking this, right? And Trump was extremely rude to elites all the time, right? So I'm not saying everyone in the room had good reasons to stick with that movement, right? Right? But he's doing something that a lot of people hadn't seen before. So maybe this rudeness towards elites or finally being mean to people that are seen as kind of parasites or something is the new thing. It's not just the wall. I wrote etc. That's what I'm doing. Bernie Sanders, right? Vote for Sanders. It's a New Deal, 1970s Denmark. But that's the myth, and there'll be all sorts of benefits that accrue to that, right? By the way, when Sanders is asked about basic income, every now and then on the internet we're told he recommends it and loves it. No, you ask him about it, he says, I like it, 70s Denmark. Right? I mean, he changes the subject, and then he says we need a movement that pushes for getting rid of the Glass-Steagall Act and his list of 20 things. And then we can think about that, right? I mean, that's his answer. That's his answer. By the way, there hasn't been anyone this close to president who sounds more like me, right, on everything else, I believe, right? I'm earning plus basic income. I think that's me. But, there's times literally where it kind of got to me. I have an emotional connection to Sanders. But I still think this indirectness suffers, right? Because if you are invisible or despised, you don't think you're going to get in on the New Deal. It's not going to happen to you. And who's got to put it together? These elites that we've lost trust in. Clinton? By the way, I have an emotional attachment to the Clintons. Even though at Acorn we were often fighting them. He sounds like my family. Right? He's the only guy on TV that sounds like everyone who grew up around him. Honestly, I really do. With them, I think it's just the selling of intelligence. It's just smart administration, smart people. They talk a lot about colleges. Internet discussion that's pro-Clinton is often about how stupid the opponents are. There's just a real focus on this. And if you think you're invisible, despised, you're in trouble with the elites, this is utterly poison. That first question, right? Am I in this movement? It's my equivalent of is shit broken? Am I in this at all? Yes, no. They have very strong reasons to say no. And then leftist groups, right? So the Vanguard Revolutionary Party will do Lenin and Mao, but we've learned some things. It won't be exactly like Lenin and Mao. It can be hard to picture, but it's this thing that happens, right? And by the way, let me be real clear on this. Radical movement members, so I talk to anyone on the left, a lot, right? And I will tell you, people who identify themselves as Greens, people who identify themselves as Marxist, socialists, are absolutely just as hard to sell on basic income. Absolutely just as hard to sell. You get the exact same questions you get from committed members of other parties. And people that aren't committed to any of them are actually a lot easier to talk to. At the moment. Can you join them out? Me reiterating, I'm done with slides. I just put the same thing over and over. So here's where it all messes up, right? For this thing that isn't basic income to work, we really depend a lot. And by the way, I'm not for replacing everything else with basic income. I'm definitely not part of that. There's a tremendous amount of ways basic income is sold that way, right? There's versions of the right that explicitly say that's what they want. I'm not one of those. But there is this taxing when it's not basic income. It depends on compassion, competence, and sincerity to get through. Whereas basic income depends a lot less on that, right? You can not give a rip, but if this actually succeeds, if we get this thing through, the person who doesn't give a rip can still cut a check, right? Social Security, not everybody works at Social Security, sees the despised people and cares about them, right? But it bails the despised out, okay? So I think there's something about this that, this seals a lot of my support for basic income. While I was working in Pine Bluff, Clinton implemented welfare reform, Clinton and the Republicans, right? Ending welfare as we know it. And it was declared over and over again that they had succeeded. They had moved people from welfare to work. There I'm in a room, right? Our Republican congressman says they did it. Bill Clinton says they did it. And they didn't do it. I'm sitting on couches, right? And someone's moved in the house, right? These are versions of homelessness. This would be called homelessness if it was a friend of yours living this way, right? But it's not called that now. It's just a lower welfare roll. We're paying fewer people, right? Success. So here it is. People in power do not see us. Why give you power? Do the thing, that's their thing. Thing benefits you, community since when. And by the way, we often overemphasize self-interest. This is interesting, you mentioned altruism and self-interest. A lot of this reasoning is not about oneself. It's actually about a community that they care about. So if I don't think it's going to work for the Delta in Arkansas, or just anyone who's low income, I'm going to not give my loyalty. Again, it's always easier to just say we've done our best and quit. By the way, some of the beautiful people that are working very hard for a federal job guarantee, right? And that's a movement that sometimes people say, oh, get in there and fight them, right? Your basic income, their jobs, they all should fight. But I do want to say, we're going to hear, oh, we offered all the jobs. Oh yeah, everyone in the Delta could come here and get a job. And we got some of the jobs. And some people just won't do it. We did our best. And it's very hard if you're invisible and despised to get in there and contest that. I had the hardest time as an Acorn organizer I had on any issue I ever worked on with welfare reform. I could not get people to get up and say, you're saying I'm better off, but I'm not. Why? Because they're already despised. They don't want to hear, right? There's Kentucky Fried Chicken down the street, they're hiring, right? I was asking people to go in there and hear that. I was asking people to risk the 1 year they have left of their benefits. If I get in there and complain, right, I could lose this and lose the year. And I have to say, I don't think so, right? I've never had that, I've never dealt with that level of communicative powerlessness. People could not get in there and say, what they were seeing, what they knew, what they wanted. And so everyone just said they did their best and quit. Here's another problem, this is a separate one. Good people are going to know that somebody else is always worse off, or they're going to say that even if they're worse off, right? So I volunteered in soup kitchens, right? And people there will say, oh no, I'm fine. You know, they'll talk about people worse off than them. And I'll say, you know what, you don't have to do that. Trust me, you're as bad off as anyone I've met in a while, right? But what do you do? That's a weird conversation, right? But good people are just going to think about other people. So when justice talk and talk about fairness, it's not going to come here. So these are two different motivations, right? We're despised, we're invisible, right? That big program that does the thing is going to happen in Western Massachusetts. I don't think anyone in Western Massachusetts really thinks it'll happen there, right? It'll just happen in Boston, right? That community, very open to invisibility language. If you say, oh, it won't happen out here, people in Springfield have some reasons to believe that. Springfield, Massachusetts just isn't getting promoted, right, by the state. And so if they say no, by the way, this is a terrible reason to give up demands for justice, right? People worse off than you will benefit, right? That's ethically kind of terrible, but it's still a dynamic that's out there, I think. Basic income knows, hey, I used to have 3 boxes, now I'm down to 2, right? I guess it's the same thing I've thought. But if we're saying, look, let's make a demand, right? The checks will be issued, right? Even the despised can deposit a check, right? Look, they don't have to like you. We're going to get them to issue a share. And it's worked. Alaska's dividends survived. Sarah Palin. I don't think that's a little thing. I think that's a huge thing, right? But there's some irony there. She actually increased it. And then she did a one-time doubling, which is long-term probably not the thing to do, but I think she liked getting to do that. But again, if you think this is the kind of stuff that isn't going to work, the dividends survived. Oops. Okay. Oops. That was not supposed to be. Okay. This is probably the act, I've got 3 boxes now. But in a way, what I hope happens is we make demands, we win basic income, we get to organize differently. I think a basic income is a strike fund for all, a civic subsidy for all, and I think we'll go further and make more demands. Supporting basic income convinces the despised we see them and we do not despise them. Again, at Acorn, I sometimes had to, when I sat on the couch, I actually had to rev myself up and give off a little different vibe. It's not a word I use. But I had to give a different feeling than I often am giving in front of you. I had to act a little manic. Why? They had to think I was crazy enough to actually change the game. When I said, I'm going to knock on every door in this neighborhood, and we're going to have a meeting, and then they're not going to be able to say no to us, they would say, oh, he's kind of crazy, right? He's actually going to do that, right? And I had to learn to do that, by the way, because I'm fairly mellow. I just would give reasons out of it, right? And everyone else who worked around me was manic as hell, right? And that created problems elsewhere in our personal lives. But in the couch, it made a big difference. Okay, because of time, I just want to give you a sense of what language in the movement I want basic income to be the opposite of. Okay, this is Bill Clinton, speech at the DNC, everyone applauded. This is him campaigning for a candidate he wants to win. Okay, let's just all in quick, right? And here he goes. She sent me to this primary in West Virginia where she knew we were going to lose. She knew we were going to lose. He did the thumb thing. To look those coal miners in the eye and say, I'm down here because Hillary sent me to tell you if you really think you can get the economy back you had 50 years ago, have at it. Vote for whoever you want to. That's smart. But if she wins, she's coming back for you to take you along the ride to America's future. She's coming back for you. My internal organs of mine lowered. Right? I just went, what is he doing? Applause. This was not a throwaway line. This was a big deal. still thinking about why that. If I were a journalist asking questions, I'd want to know why you made that decision to say that. Yeah. What did Trump say to the coal miners? He said, "I love you." Right? I mean, that's weird, right? I think one guy's a lot smarter than the other one, often, but not on this. "I love you" is a much better thing to say to someone you want to vote for you. I'm coming after you to bring you into this new economy, right? It's going to be all about smartness. And I don't think you're very smart, by the way. Right? That's crazy. Okay, Tom, I noticed. Many movement leaders, by the way, do not look like they can manage whole economies. If you're part of a radical movement, basic income is something you can actually deliver. When the Green Party had a meeting after their election campaign, and they could not get the audio up for Julian Assange, right? For that organization to say, "We're not doing basic income, we're doing a Green New Deal," well, you can't get audio for Julian Assange at your meeting. I hate to be rude, but don't make the claim, right? Put us in, and we've read lots of Marx or whatever, and we're going to implement some brand new thing. Just say you're going to do basic income, right? I don't think you can implement a Green New Deal, right? I mean, I love you guys, but I just, so, I'll say that to multiple movements, right? I mentioned one, I don't know, just one. We got to stop selling replacement of other provisions. And Carl Wiederkus, by the way, who's in the room also, we talk about people in the room now. We're learning that this is actually a lower percentage of the economy than we once thought. This may be important to stress, actually. We're asking for less than you think. Instead of hiring people to find out who deserves and needs help, let's put out a cash grant to everyone. This used to be my opening line when I sold basic income. Now it's, so many people you know have given up. They think the world doesn't need them or hates them. It's the last slide. We see you. We want you in our community. Here's your share. You have earned it. Now show us what you can do. Thank all of you.